All right guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the build of the Huracan aircraft. This may be the final video for this build. We do have a lot of things to get taken care of, so stay tuned and we will get back into the build of this aircraft. All right guys, so the next thing we're going to be focusing on is the wiring in the fuselage and getting all that taken care of. We still have to get the other wing completed, but we haven't done that yet, and we won't video it on the camera because you guys have already seen one of the wings go together, so that will be an unvideoed thing. But anyways, we are going to start off with the wiring. So that's going to be the next big step, the wiring and the plumbing. We've got most of the stuff laid out and organized, of course, as we've been doing throughout this build, but we are ready to put ends on, start plugging those ends into the receiver in appropriate locations in different boxes and stuff, and getting things organized. So I'll show you guys in as much detail as I can or is exciting while we go through this. We're going to try and fit in some other things in this video, like CFGing this aircraft, which means we need to get the other wing done, and also the carrier system if we have time. Otherwise, that might be another video, but we'll see. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below if you are not a subscriber to the channel. It's free to do so, and let's get back to this aircraft. All right, so the first step that I've completed here is all the wiring for the gear controller. So we've got all of our gear themselves and brakes routed and run. We've got most of the actual plugins here done. We just need to do the actual gear in, going to the X-bus output on the receiver box. So that's all done. Next thing I'm going to focus on is going to be all the control wires. Now, I've gone and installed all of my cable guides here, so that's something I'll try and do at this step. So there's a whole bunch of them installed down here on the side of those rails, right there, right there, right there. And the point of that is obviously to have places to run the wires for the gear. So that's going to be the most visible wiring. All of these guys are just going to come up the back side of that former that's right here, and we're going to bundle those all together as they come through the appropriate ports here. All right, so a couple more steps here completed. I've run the line from the UAT, or the bubble trap, to the main tank, and then I've also installed our filler line, which is right here, and we're using one of the Jersey Modeler bezeled fuel ports. So right there, the dry lock fuel ports. So it's got a little closer valve in there, so when you put the port in, then it allows the fuel to go in, and then we've got the double O-ring seal there as well too. I usually don't use these on my aircraft, but it's a nice clean look and it really fits well with the overall layout. So basically our plumbing is done. Our wiring is complete with regards to all of the control surfaces. Now, I haven't done anything for the power supply, so we don't have anything run for the receiver power supply, the turbine power supply, none of that stuff, because it's pointless at this point unless all of our batteries are going in the front. So we're not going to do any of that stuff until we do the CFG on this aircraft. Welcome to another edition of Tip Time, brought to you by Trusty Bent Screwdriver. All right, tip time here. So we've got one of these surfaces, the elevators, actually both of them, that are a little bit loose. So when you put the rod inside the surface, it's got just a little bit of play, which shows up in the actual elevator or horizontal stab. So when this is installed, you can take it and move it just a little bit. So what I did here was just take some white spray paint. You can use whatever you'd like. I just happen to use flat white. Sprayed it inside the tube on a bunch of different angles. You usually get a little bit of overspray on the outside here, clean that up with rubbing alcohol, and I'm just waiting for this to dry. It's still a little bit wet, but when that's done, it's enough space just to take up any of the slack, and it tends to work really, really well, and that's all you need. So, all right, so before we can go any further with anything on the aircraft, we need to finish the other wing. Artemis is doing a great job supervising, and we're going to work on the wing now. Won't show you guys any of it. I marked out the light housing. I'll probably show you that one, how much easier it is on a brand new wing. Anyways, that's what we're doing now. All right guys, so I just want to show you the fresh cut wing here. So this is the left wing. We put the molding or guide on here. I actually started off quite a bit shy, so on the other side of my Sharpie marker, and I ended up getting rid of all the Sharpie mark. And I just want to show you how accurately these housings actually fit in once you get everything cut properly. So fits beautifully once you have a wing that actually you haven't cut out before. So anyways, I just wanted to show you this because it's a great fit. All right, I know many of you were concerned with the well-being of my plane and me threading the gear mounts for the main landing gear. Well, I did install the blind nuts. I found some longer bolts here, so these are the stock ones that came with the Electron gear, and these are the longer ones which have a shoulder on them, and they're just perfect. So anyways, that's what we'll be installing the main gear with, and don't worry, my plane is going to be safe. All right guys, both wings are complete. So this is the second wing, that's the first wing. We've gone back and we've changed the bolts holding the gear into blind nuts. So those are both complete, which is awesome. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get this aircraft on one of the stands, and we are going to put the wings on for the first time, getting ready to do our center of gravity check. Okay, so that seems to work fairly well. We've got the rear part of the stand on our former. We've got the front part of the stand on our kind of rear portion of our intakes, which should be okay. There is a former fairly close. So we'll leave that where it is for now and see how this all works out. Obviously we want to make sure the plane's not going to fall off. Now we don't have any nose weight in right now, so wow, that's a big plane. All right guys, that worked out good. It was a bit of a struggle because the wing tube was tight on the one side, so I had to jam the wing tube in the wing, which I'm totally okay with, but she's together for the first time. All right guys, well, I think it's really hard to comprehend on video how monstrous this thing is. If you fly one of the big airplanes that are out there, there's lots of big sport jets like this. It'll make sense to you because you've been around one, but the size of this thing is nuts. It is huge. One of the downsides with a plane this big is getting it off the stand might prove to be difficult. So these are the things I like to do at this time, just to check and see if I can actually deal with this plane by myself. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn the plane on, and we're going to power it up for the first time. So I haven't powered this thing up yet 100%. With everything connected. So this will be a first. My primary thing right now is I'm going to make sure the gear works all the way around, and then what we'll do is we'll go through and check all the surfaces. Now I have been programming the surfaces as we go through this, so there shouldn't be any surprises. All right guys, so first start up here, radio's on. I've kind of just double checked everything. Flaps are up. We don't have enough room with the stand to drop our flaps all the way. Looks like our gear has enough room to come down in here. So radio's on, let's turn this thing on and see what happens. Okay, so pretty uneventful. We'll just check all of our surfaces here. That all works, rudder. Okay, so now we'll drop the gear and see what happens. Awesome. So pretty uneventful, everything looks like it works good. Steers properly. Beautiful. All right guys, I was just playing around with the mixes for the lights, but here we go. So first switch is the landing lights or the leading edge lights. Second switch is the belly light and the marker light. Those things are nuts. Very cool setup. And the belly light is right there. Love it. So belly light and marker lights are in sync together, which is cool. I do really wish that I could fit the nose landing light on there, but there just is not enough room. So I toyed with the idea of putting it on the door, but of course the front door here blocks it all. So anyways, that's fine. All right, so before we do CFG, I've gone ahead and adjusted the brakes here. So just getting the gear set up. So basically I've limited the brake to about 65%, and I've also set up the gyro on the nose wheel and also on the brakes. So you can see the green graphs there change depending on where or how the plane is positioned. So we've got two gyros in there, one set up on the nose wheel and one set up on the brakes. The benefit of the brakes gyro is when you actually apply the brakes, the plane will turn the brakes on and off on each wheel independently depending on what's happening to the plane. So if the nose starts going to the right, it will actually cinch the left brake down a little bit and loosen the right brake up a little bit, bringing the nose back straight. So pretty cool setup on that controller. So that's done. Next thing we're going to do is set up the Cortex gyro. Now I have never done one of these before, so I'm just going to go through the instructions and follow exactly what it says. I will let you guys know the outcome. The instructions seem like they're pretty good, so I'm not going to cover this in the video, but the instructions are there. All right, guys, and she is on her own legs for the first time. Looks awesome. I got beautiful wife to help me pull it off the stand. Can probably do it myself, but it's just nice to have a helping hand for the first couple times. So what we're doing now, without any weight in the nose actually pops up. So there's a bunch of batteries stuffed in the nose right now. So we're going to get all the measurements done for the CFG using the Zycoi CFG machine. Now we could just do this the old-fashioned way and use a string, but I like to, in this situation, set it up on the Zycoi because then we can add batteries and figure out how much weight we actually have or how much room we actually have in the nose of the plane for the batteries. So it's a little bit nicer when you are trying to figure out a number in this situation because you can just keep adding to it and figure it out. Anyways, it's easier using the machine. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to lay some tape on the ground. We're going to do all of our measurements. I have put a little Sharpie mark on the underside of the aircraft at the front of the wing tube, which is where the CFG is supposed to be. So what I do in this situation is I lay down some tape and basically mark on my tape all my measurements. So that's what we're going to do. All right, guys, so I have the aircraft on the balancer. And I've just been kind of playing around with things here. So let's go to weight. So I don't have the full load that it's suggesting in the nose, but we're at 52, call it 53 pounds. I was actually really hoping that this thing would come in at like under 50, like 46 is what I was thinking, but clearly not. So we'll go to C of G. So it says we're still tail heavy and that we have to add 1.53 pounds. Now I'm going to put the rest of the weight in the nose, so I'm going to get this balanced out to 0. All right, so that is the all-up weight with the correct amount put in the nose. So we're at about 54 pounds. Now if we go to the C of G, it's saying we are essentially good. I mean, it says tail heavy, 0.02 at correction point, but we've added a lot of lead to the nose. So we'll pull the lead out and see how much weight we have in batteries. Now, when this plane is set up the way it is right now, it feels not too bad on the nose. So I'm just taking the tail right now and pushing it down. So it doesn't feel terrible on the nose, but I think it could be lighter. But that's going to be a trial and error thing. So what I want to do in this case is I want to have some removable weights in the nose, the rest of the weight taken up in batteries, so we can move that C of G back as we get comfortable with the plane and get some time to fly it. So let's pull that weight out and see how much we have to deal with. All right, so this is what we had in here for lead in the nose. So basically we had half of my box full of lead, full of weights, and then we had a bunch of those guys. So the total weight that we had sitting in the nose, 1,779 grams. So 1,781 divided by 454 is 3.92 pounds of weight. So that's how much batteries we have to play with. So let's grab some batteries here and see where this comes out at. All right, so if I grab my heaviest batteries I have, that's going to help us out here. So I used to have this one in the diamond, but we needed to lose a ton of weight in the diamond. So that is a massive light battery. We've got my, this is the turbine battery that I had in the diamond, but I went with a smaller one. So that is our turbine battery. So we're up to 725, and we needed 1782. We need a battery for the landing gear. So we'll use one of my 2-cell 2200 milliamp ones. And then we'll just throw in 2 of those for the receiver. And we're up to 1,291 grams of weight. Meaning that we still need to add about a pound of lead for the nose weight. All right, so that's what the scale's telling us we need for a full load in the nose. Now that's 1803. We needed 1782, so that is really darn close to what we needed. Anyways, that gets us to kind of what we need for the nose of this aircraft. So what we'll do now is we will measure this out the old-fashioned way. So we're going to use a string setup with a piece going under each of the wing fuselage joints, and we will lift the aircraft up and see what happens with that load in the nose. Now, I suspect, like I said, we're going to be nose heavy, but always good to double check. So I'm going to get that sorted out, set up here, and then I will show you guys what that looks like. All right, so we've got our heavy string here with one of the round servo horns under each side. We're just on the leading edge of the wing tube on both sides of the aircraft. So now we're in the balanced condition as per the Zykoy C of G machine. So now we're going to lift this aircraft up by the string and we'll see what happens. So according to that, we are tail heavy still. Oh, it's because while I was playing with this, all my weight shifted backwards. Okay, so that looked pretty good. The nose was just settling down. Yeah. Now, it's not that I don't trust the IGYRO CFG machine, it's just nice to double check things, consider redundancy for the center of gravity. So we know that the numbers that the machine's spitting out is accurate, which is good. So we've got things really close. Now keep in mind, that doesn't include any of the wiring that we now have to do to get everything hooked up. So that's going to change things. But at least now we know we've got lots of room for batteries. We know what our total weight needs to be. We know that we've double checked our CFG on the IGYRO machine, and we've got a good starting point now. So next thing I get to do is get the battery leads all figured out. All right, so aircraft is back on the stand here, and we are just working on the front battery area. So I've made 2 openings for the MPX connector pieces. So these are little housings you can get that the green MPX connectors fit in. I just used a Dremel and just did that by hand. And then I just made a hole there for the Dean's connector, and we'll just use some Hysol or epoxy and glue that in place. So we're going to have 2 MPX connectors for the receiver batteries, the Dean's connectors for the light system, which these are the leads right here that are up front that we ran already. And then we're going to have one of the XT60 connectors on this side for the turbine, and one of the XT60 connectors on that side for the landing gear. So I like to use all these different connectors because it eliminates issues with connecting the wrong battery to the wrong system. All right, so I've done the battery plugins here. It's a couple hours later. It's taken me a couple hours to get this all organized. So we've got all of our battery plugins here, and as I've already talked about, and I've run all of the power lines down one side. So I've also gone through and put a little bit of shoe goop, the E6000 stuff on all of my connectors. So I'll go through and do that everywhere, like all my servo connectors that go into my main box, the ones that go into any gyros and stuff like that, and also the ones that go into the gear controller and the ECU. So that is all done as well. So, because of all the wiring we've added to the front end of this plane, I suspect we'll have to put in just a little bit less nose weight than was originally predicted, but it's not going to be overly significant. We've just got a couple connectors in the front here, plus the wires running down the nose area. So, essentially, we're complete. All right, so just a couple things left to do, guys. I didn't talk about the programming on the gyro. Very simple, just follow the instructions. And we've got this list of things to do here. So Loctite engine bolts, Loctite front gear bolts, and nose leg. So that's the pin flat spots, which we haven't done yet. So that's why I keep these lists here. So we've got our final things to take care of. So we're going to get that stuff done, and then we are going to assemble the stand for this aircraft. Really excited about that. All right, so I went and picked up some batteries today, these 2 Gens Ace batteries. My lighter side of RC 2200 milliamps are just too light. So anyways, we got some 5000 milliamp hard case ones. Those will work perfect. So what I'm doing now is I'm assembling the battery pack, which is all going to fit in the nose. So we still do need to add some strip weights with this entire bundle, but this is a really heavy bundle, which is perfect. So all I do in this case is figure out my layout. And my layout here is exactly how my plugins work, and I just use double-sided tape to put this bundle together. And then I use some fiberglass tape to put 2 bands around the battery pack. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'll show you guys the final result. All right, and there's the final results. Just another little note here, I did change the battery leads on the receiver batteries from Dean's to the MPX battery connectors. So I already had these sitting in my box, and that's why they're all made up and ready to go. So anyways, that is the battery bundle there with all of those weights equals the 1782 that we were supposed to add. All right, so just working on a front battery tray that uses something a little more than Velcro. So you'll see the center hole there in the tray itself. And we've got this carbon laminated wood here, and you'll see the hole there, and that's going to match up with each other in the aircraft. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to have this piece of carbon tube that's going to get epoxied into here, and that will pop in that hole in the plate installed in the aircraft, and then we will just have a nice Velcro strap going around the midpoint of the batteries. The batteries will be fastened to this tray, so when we want to take this out, all we have to do is undo the Velcro strap. This and all the batteries come off, and it's going to be a nice solid mounting system here as well. All right, so my battery holder system is all complete. I just strapped batteries to it, and this works awesome. So there's going to be one Velcro strap in the center hole, and when you want to put the batteries in, you just slide it in, and the carbon rod goes in the hole, and do up a Velcro strap, and it will be nice and solid. So that worked out awesome. All the battery leads are nice and easy to connect, so very happy with that. All right, so with the batteries complete, we are moving on to the final steps here. So what I've done is I've made a template for the intakes, and I've cut that out of metal screen, and I'm going to glue that in place. Primary reason for that is just the way this aircraft is laid out. So it's a lot like a scale aircraft where you've got the nose wheel and then the intakes right there. So I fly primarily off of grass. So there's going to be a lot of grass kicked up by that nose wheel, and it's going to get sucked right into the airframe or the fuselage. Now there's a large space in between the intakes and the turbine, but because of that large space, we can also get a lot of grass getting ingested by the turbine. So not a good thing. So there's a shot of what the screen's going to look like when installed. Pretty invisible, but that should catch a ton of the grass that gets kicked up by the nose wheel. So what I'm going to do there is I'm just going to use some medium or thick CA and just kind of spot glue this in place with Kicker because it's got a bit of a curve to it. And once it's glued in place, then I'm going to take probably some 5-minute or 20-minute high sol and just glue it a little bit better. I have used hot glue in the past, and the problem is if you get any fuel or smoke oil on it, it delaminates and just kind of melts. And there is the finished product on the intake screens. So not adding much weight at all, and a little bit of extra protection. All right guys, so I've added the nose weight and the batteries to the front. We've done the C of G with the string, put the aircraft back on the scales, and we are 54.38 pounds with the UAT full, ready to fly. So if we go C of G there, we are just a little bit nose heavy. But according to the string, that works out perfect. So we're going to keep that where it is, fly it, and see what happens. So now what we can do is we can fill up the main fuel tank, see what our difference is in fuel, and also figure out the capacity of the main fuel tank. So 54.38. Let's see what it weighs full of fuel. All right, so full of fuel, she is 64 pounds even, which means if we do the calculation, we've got 64 pounds at full, 54.38 with UAT full, which means that in the tank we've got 9.62 pounds of fuel. Now 1 liter of kerosene, which is what I have in my tank right now, or my fuel jug weighs 800 grams, which is 1.76 pounds. So 800 grams divided by 454 is 1.76. So we take the 9.62 pounds of fuel divided by 1.76, which gives us 5.47, or we'll call it 5.5 liters of fuel in the main fuel tank. All right, guys, we are done with the Huracan CFG, the Huracan build, and everything on this plane is ready to go. So our CFG is done. Our tape list that I had on the tank for all the things that needed to be wrapped up, that is complete as well too. Now we've got one thing left to do, and that is to polish the wings, actually two things, and make the stand for this aircraft. So I'm excited to show you guys that. But before we do, I just want to give a shout out to all of you guys that have donated to the build fund for the new shop. Really appreciate all the donations. It's amazing to see all the help. Thank you guys. If you are not familiar with that, we are crowdfunding for the new shop build for the lighter side of RC. There's a bunch of links down below if you feel like donating. So thank you guys, appreciate it. Now let's polish these wings up, put them away, and let's make the stand for this aircraft. All right guys, last step in the build is all of this stuff from Random RC. Random Heli is what it is, so it's randomrc.com. There's a link down below to the website. So this is the exact same kit that we used on the A10 build, and we are going to be using it on the Huracan with one exception, something really, really cool here. So Ray reached out to me, and we had a discussion back and forth and had a great idea on how to make this work well in my trailer. So let me show you exactly what we're doing here. All right, so the A10, basically we have the rear support, the fuselage support, and the front support. So we're doing the exact same thing with the Huracan. Now the one exception is the stand. So where I want to put this in my trailer is probably on the floor. Now this is too wide right now. I've made my mark right here where I need to cut this, but you'll notice on the edge there's a 45-degree bevel. So one of the things that Random RC does is they make these tracks, not out of wood, they're out of metal, and they work well with this kit right here. So this is, I think, called the GTSR kit. So it's the Gladiator track retainer kit. So let me show you what we're doing. So basically the aircraft will be mounted to the stand, and these, with all the hardware, will be bolted into the trailer, whether on the floor or on the top. And what happens is you just slide this whole tray with the aircraft in between the four rollerblade wheels, and it basically retains everything. There's a little friction threaded pin that you thread through, and that holds it all in place, and these four guys will hold it all in place as well too. So I'm really excited to use this kit. Now the Gladiator track I've never really used. My friend Steve that owns the F-18 you've seen in the videos, he has used the Gladiator track, and it works really well. But I'm kind of a fan of doing this, and we thought it was a cool idea to try something new. So anyways, that's what we're doing, and that's kind of why this board is laid out the way it is. So what we're gonna do is I gotta cut this board down, and then we have to figure out where we're putting the supports on the Huracan. Now, on the Huracan, it kind of makes sense to do it on the fuselage joint here because there's no former work back here, and then we also get into the rear fins. And then we're going to have the fuselage supports kind of close to the wing tube is where I'm thinking. And then the front support, we're probably going to be in this area here because there's a former for the front gear in that area. Now, ideally, it would be nice to have the support back here, but the problem is that there's just not a good former location there, and all the force would be on the fuselage, which I don't think is a good idea. So, and the reason for that is I was thinking, well, if I could make this so I could assemble the aircraft on the stand, that would be ideal, which I can still do, I just can't put the gear down. So that's kind of the goal for this. Anyways, I'm gonna get this figured out, get this cut and everything. I'll show you guys the final result. It's pretty simple to put these things together. I'll go over in detail the final kind of how I've got everything laid out once it's done. You basically follow the instructions, fit it best to your aircraft. It's like infinitely adjustable. So I'll be back shortly. All right, guys, and there is basically the completed random RC carrier. So worked out really well, very happy with this. Basically, it's as I mentioned, the same situation as the A10. Extremely solid once it's all set up, and I think this is going to work absolutely awesome for carrying this Huracan. So I'm excited for the tracks that I'm going to install in my airplane trailer. So come the springtime, when I do the maiden on the aircraft, I will definitely show you guys what I set up for this aircraft and carrying it in my trailer. All right, guys, so effectively that is the end of the Huracan build. Now keep in mind, once you set these carriers up for your aircraft, it doesn't stay with that aircraft. You know, if you end up selling a plane, all you have to do is remold and readjust these units. So they are completely adjustable, or obviously you can sell it with the plane. So lots of options there. All right, guys, quick synopsis on the entire build of the Huracan. It is a quick build. Hour-wise, you could probably have it done in about 2 weeks, putting in a little bit of time here and there. It took me quite a while on the channel to get it built because we were working on the house, which we're now in. So that's why it took longer, which was fine because we were waiting on the other projects that we've got in the queue. So all in all, great build, really, really good quality. Impressed with everything about this aircraft. There's nothing really obvious that I would change personally. I think now when you go to the Ozero.ca or Ozero website, there is a lighter option available. I don't know anything about it. I know some of you guys have reached out to me and asked, but I don't know what my plane is. I'm assuming my plane is one of the first generations and probably not the lighter options. So keep that in mind if you're planning on ordering one of these aircraft. But I think it's going to be a great flying aircraft. There's a lot of really nice aerodynamic qualities that this plane has, and I think it's going to be a treat to fly. So unfortunately, it is the end of December 2021 here in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. It is brutal cold outside, like minus 35, minus 40 degrees Celsius. I'll put a conversion here for Fahrenheit, which is really cold. So there's going to be no flying anytime soon. So it's probably going to be about 2 to 3 months before we can get this aircraft out. So thank you guys for checking out the build. Thanks for watching the build. If you have any further questions about this aircraft or anything else that I have featured on the channel, or just general questions, shoot me an email. You can comment down below, but email is better for contacting me. So thanks guys for watching. We will see you in the next video.